Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Political Soup. Today's political soup is fire and ice flavored. So, before we get started talking about today's topic, I want to thank you all who support this channel, and I want to encourage you to continue your support. If you're not a supporter of this channel, know that this channel is funded exclusively by viewers. It's made possible by viewers like you, and it's your contributions that keep me on the air, keep the lights on in the cabin here in the woods, and keep these videos coming your way. The links in the description below will show you where to go to make a contribution, whether it's PayPal, Cash App, or my post office box. And so today we're talking about politics, and we're talking about fire and ice. As you may well know, the center part of the country got slammed with Arctic conditions, and I am enduring a blizzard here in Oklahoma. You might be able to tell that the sun is shining now, so we're supposed to get a little bit above freezing for the first time all week, and this might allow some of this snow to melt. It was forecasted to give us 2 to 4 inches, and it ended up being more like 7 to 10 inches around here. And I don't know who they're measuring, who their official measurer is, but they need them to get them out here to my cabin in the woods because we got deep snow. And good news is we got everything we need. The power didn't go out. I have firewood as a backup. And I'm running low on drinking water because I don't drink the well water. But I'm melting snow, and that's going to cover the difference. And yes, I know I should probably boil it. Going to do all that. I have some containers, big containers of water down in the storm shelter, but I really don't feel like digging them out when this snow is everywhere. Now, while this is going on, the West Coast and Southern California is on fire. The Pacific Palisades, and a suburb of Los Angeles, and I'm sure you all have seen the news, has been utterly and completely destroyed. Now, this is where the rich and famous live. This is adjacent to, and the fires have even spread into Malibu. And so all of your favorite stars now are being paraded around on television talking about how they're in their homes where they raised their families and have lived for years and years have been utterly razed to the ground by these wildfires. Now, we had, during the Trump administration, some really bad fires a few years back in California, and Donald Trump spoke to Gavin Newsom, the governor, and said that you need to do forest maintenance. The problem in California is that all of the environmentalists have decided that clearing the forest around urban areas, or even suburban areas, or even rural areas, clearing the forest of dead wood and raking up debris that is potentially very combustible from the forest floor is something that the environmentalists say we should not do. They call it destroying the environment for the animals, the ecostructure. But I think they fail to understand nature. As a guy who grew up in the Pacific Northwest Cascade Mountains, it's something that the old timers all knew, that you can either clean up the forest floor of debris, deadfalls, brush. Trees die for numerous reasons: old age, disease, pestilence. They then fall to the ground, turn into perfect firewood, and lay there for the nearest spark to be ignited near them. And with the kinds of winds that you get on the Pacific coast, you absolutely have to do forest maintenance. And Donald Trump told them this, that you've got uncleared brush, dead brush, and a lot of the stuff that grows there, when it dries out in the winter, it becomes very combustible. So if there isn't some manicuring and some cleaning up done to the forest areas around these residential areas, they're just asking for it. When Donald Trump says you need to clean the forest floor, right? I don't think he explained it as articulately as I just did. But when he said that a few years back, Gavin Newsom is seen rolling his eyes. This was a late night joke for a good long time, that the Donald Trump thinks we need to clean the forest. Ha ha ha, who cleans the forest? But what you don't know is until environmentalists came along and stopped it, the cleaning of the forest was part of forest management and has been since the 19th century. And what this looks like in most cases is that areas that have been damaged by insects or disease outbreaks in the forested areas, that the trees are brought down, the dead trees are fallen by chainsaw or bulldozer, and they're put in a big giant pile. And then people are allowed, once they purchase a permit, to drive up into the forest and cut up all of this seasoned wood and use it in their fireplaces. Or, as I did when I was young, cut it up and sell it to other people and deliver it to their house. And this was a good way to make money when I was young. But they stopped doing that, I think, in a lot of the places of Oregon. And since then, we've seen these world record breaking forest fires. A lot of it is due to the fact that the deadfall is allowed to just lay there and wait for a spark. And so Donald Trump was absolutely correct in that the way to prevent these fires is to clean the forest floor. You have to remove the dead wood. You have to bulldoze the dead brush. You have to create fire breaks between populated and heavily used areas and the wild woods. And you do that by bulldozing basically a bare spot and keeping it bulldozed through the fire season. And all of this was stopped by environmentalists in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And, you know, it's been so long ago since this was a normal practice, especially in parts of the West Coast, that these stars and comedians and even Gavin Newsom, the governor, thought Donald Trump was an idiot for suggesting such a thing. They'd never heard of it. But this is how we prevented these massive fires in the past. They abandoned that in favor of environmentalism so the squirrel could live under the dead tree. The squirrel will find another place to live. He don't have got to live under that dead tree, right? Nature's more resilient than you know. But if you don't manage the dead wood, then nature will. And that's what it looks like when nature manages the forest floor. Nature manages it with fire. That's the natural way. If humans weren't here and we weren't around, then trees would fall over, they would dry out, lightning would strike, and a forest fire would take out thousands and thousands of acres of wood and start a regenerative process that would take another 100 years to restore that area. But it's how nature deals with this in a natural way. So if you don't want forest fires, you have to do something unnatural, which may seem stupid to somebody who don't know anything, but you do have to, in fact, clean the forest floor. Everyone involved in forest management understands this. They've been arguing for the right to clear out dead wood, sell it for firewood, set it up, and then in low fire risk times burn it in a controlled burn. And this is what has to be done. And if you don't do that to save the squirrels, then you're going to lose your house. You can save the squirrels or you can save your house, right? The squirrels will just move further back in the woods, right? And so this is going on. We got the weather event. We have the fires in California. And there's another form of ice we're talking about. Because a lot of people are talking about what Donald Trump said about Greenland, that he wants to acquire Greenland. And of course, this is setting off resistance. Of course, Donald Trump could say the sky was blue, and a bunch of people would jump off and say, he's a liar! It's not blue! It's azure! Azure is just another word for blue. So this is triggering a response, his discussion about Canada being the 51st state, his discussion about annexing Greenland, and I hope I didn't say Iceland earlier, it's Greenland, because Greenland is covered in ice, and Iceland is pretty green. So, yeah, that's a whole nother story for Vikings, a Viking story. I should talk about Vikings more. I know a lot about Vikings. I'm a little bit Viking obsessed. That's been my area of study over the last few years in my spare time. And but nonetheless, the Panama Canal as well. He's talking about retaking the Panama Canal and renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And this has got his opponents popping a gasket. It's got them turning flips, and it really plays into their fears that their self-created fear that Donald Trump is going to be some kind of dictator. So, are these legitimate things that Donald Trump wants to do, or is he just trolling them? Is this a big distraction for him while he sets up his swamp killing team to go in and drain the swamp of all this corruption? And I would say, yes, that is going on, but also there's validity to what he's talking about. But I think the timing of talking about buying Greenland, taking back the Panama Canal by force and through invasion even, and then turning Canada into the 51st state, are all things that reflect ideas that Donald Trump believes in, but they're not his main priority, not by a long shot. And he's putting this stuff out there to occupy his opponents. It's a feint. You know, if you and I were fighting, right, we were boxing, I might do like that, like I was going to hit you just to give you the cross, right? So, you know, bam. And so I think there's a bit of that going on. This is the fake left that makes you squinch and put up this arm while I hit you with this one over here, which is draining the swamp. So, yes, when you're dealing with somebody who's as smart as Donald Trump, you have to think outside the box, because he's playing, I'm going to say 4D chess. They've already moved it up to 6D chess. I don't even know what that is. I've played 3D chess, 3D chess. But, yeah, I'm not sure what 4D chess is, but Donald Trump is probably playing it in this particular situation, that it's actually worked quite well. Everybody from Don Lemon to Nancy Pelosi is popping a gasket over how Donald Trump is becoming an imperialist and a conqueror, and he's a tyrant. And even the leaders of the European Union are going, you better not invade another country. Like they could stop us if we wanted to. But that's really not what this is about. So let's look into real quickly the validity of what he's talking about, even though we know it's a smokescreen for what's really taking up most of his energy, which is destroying the deep state and reorganizing our government. So let's look at the Canadian thing first. This starts when Trudeau comes to Mar-a-Lago for a visit, and Donald Trump wants him to do A, B, and C. He resists and goes, no, that's not going to happen. We're not going to do that. And he says, well, if you don't, 25% tariffs on all your imports, which shocks the crud out of Trudeau. And he says, if you do that, you'll destroy Canada. That would destroy Canada's economy. And Donald Trump says, if your nation is so utterly dependent on another nation that a 25% tariff would destroy your country, you don't have a country. That makes you dependent on America. That makes you America's 51st state. And this is where this all comes from, this offhand remark that if a country is so dependent on foreign imports and exports that they can't survive, they're not really a valid country. They're a vassal state of the country they're dependent on. Excuse me. And he went back, and I think that statement made a lot of people, it once again triggered their fears that Donald Trump could be a dictator and a military conqueror, and that he might just come up to Canada and take over, right? Just might claim part of Canada. And but I don't think that was at all his intention. It was a troll. It was a smart aleck comment, right? That people took seriously because they have no sense of humor, and the left can't meme. Okay, they don't get ironic humor, but nonetheless, that's what started all of this. Whether or not Trudeau's resignation had anything to do with that, I don't know. Some people say it did. Some people say that Trudeau, that his whole government is focused on DEI hiring and, you know, trans rights and political correct speech and all of these social agendas, and that he's ill-equipped to handle a trade war with the United States. Because even though Donald Trump probably has no intention of annexing Canada, he is going to engage in a trade war with Canada until this trade imbalance gets settled and the northern border gets secured. and they stop letting in people into their country that we wouldn't want in our country. Canada lets in people suspected of terrorism into their country, people that we would not let into our country. They let them into their country, and then they just walk across a pretty much unguarded border between Canada and the United States. And this is something our intelligence officers have been reporting on for years. This has been going on since the beginning of terrorism, since Canada loosened its immigration policies. And they're going to have to fix that, right? And if they don't, they will face a trade war. And Donald Trump is posting a lot of flags showing Canada part of the United States. It's honestly just a big troll and a big joke. It's a meme. And but it also serves as a distraction. But hidden behind that is the truth of the matter, that they will fix this, or we will destroy Canada in a financial trade war that they cannot win, because they are totally dependent upon us. We can just cut the flow. We won't feel it. It'll bring them to their knees. So they need to stop dictating terms, and they need to decide how to make their financial overlords happy here in the United States. And mouthing off about taking Alaska, mouthing off about how that's not going to happen, is actually working against you. I know I got some Canadian viewers. Canadian viewers, pop in down there. Do you really think Donald Trump's coming for your country? Or do you believe, like I do, that this is negotiation tactics? It's the big ask. It's the art of the deal. And what Donald Trump really wants is to strengthen Canada along with the United States, to partner with Canada, to cause us to be trading partners in a way that makes us more dominant globally. And that he would love to see a North American union, not a political union, but a trade union between Mexico, America, and Mexico, United States, and Canada, so that we're working together and not against each other, and no one's taking advantage of no one else. Now, what about the Panama Canal? Well, as you may or may not know, the American government built the Panama Canal. It's a section of jungle that had to be cleared, and a canal had to be dug with turn-of-the-century equipment back between the 19th and 20th century, and early 20th century. And, I believe that a lot of it was done by hand. And thousands, I wish I'd researched the number, but thousands of Americans gave their life. Many of them died in accidents. Many of them died from malaria, which killed a lot of people working in that jungle. And we built that thing, and then Jimmy Carter sold it back to the Panamanians for $1. And that was back in the 1970s. And I believe they took possession of it sometime later. And there's been mismanagement happening at the Panama Canal. And we do have a right to not just have access to the Panama Canal, but to control it to some degree or another. Giving it away without any stipulation was a mistake. And there needs to be a treaty there with Panama where they respect our rights. Our naval ships and our trade ships that originate in the United States should not be charged to go through that canal. We already paid the price with Americans' blood, sweat, tears, and millions of American dollars that built that. And I hate to talk bad about the dead. I know he just recently passed away, but that's just another reason that Jimmy Carter will be remembered as possibly the very worst president of the United States until Joseph Biden took office. And that's bad because Jimmy Carter's a nice guy. I like Jimmy Carter. I think he's a good Christian man. The work he did for Habitat for Humanity will probably build him a big mansion in heaven just for that work. But giving away the Panama Canal was a stupid move, and Donald Trump is going to in some way undo that. Now, the thing about the Panama Canal is we've already invaded Panama once in my lifetime. We went in there to take out the warlord Noriega, the drug lord Noriega, the corrupt General Noriega, and overthrew his military standing there and captured him. And this is something that we will repeat to capture the Panama Canal. It would be a rather simple thing to just roll up on it with an aircraft carrier group, some amphibious landing there, some Marines on the ground. I don't think the Panamanians have the ability to return fire or the desire to, and I think it would just be more or less bloodless. We would just step in and take it over, and that is something that's, of all these different things that could happen, that's the one that I think is most likely to occur. if Panama doesn't play their cards exactly right. And once again, how about some humility, some gratitude, and some recognition for us building that in the first place instead of a lot of pushback, attitude, and one-upsmanship. So they got bad leadership in Canada, bad leadership in Panama, and Donald Trump is going to do something about both of these situations. I don't think he intends to invade Canada, but Panama better dot their I's, cross their T's. They may, if they don't play ball, they may need to stick their head between their legs and kiss their butt goodbye, right? Because we aren't going to tolerate anything but cooperation out of that tiny country who we've given so much to. Now, what about Greenland? So, as the polar ice caps are melting, I will agree that the planet is warming. I don't agree that it's man-made, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. The reality is shipping channels are opening up in the north. The Russians are taking advantage of this. The Chinese are there, even though they're not an Arctic nation. And right in the middle of this is Greenland. And Greenland needs to be protected by the United States. Denmark and Greenland are about to come to terms on Greenland's independence. They're about to become an independent nation. They want that. They're tired of their interactions with Denmark. They're tired of they're just tired of not having enough political power over their own territory. And so they are and have been working towards independent Greenland. And if Donald Trump can offer them a position as a territory of the United States, a lot of the stuff they're getting from Greenland will be done for them on in a much better way, and their protection will be much more ironclad. And we'll be able to expand into the areas of Greenland that they're not using. We'll be able to build bases to put everything from ships and airplanes to missiles on their territory there. And also it would give our companies a more unfettered open access to minerals and precious, everything from oil and gas to uranium and nickel have a vast supply of that in Greenland. And American companies would like access to that. And this would also give us a strategic control over that section of the Arctic most closely related to the United States and to Canada as well. So this would benefit Canada if we can at least get some rights in Greenland or actually have it become a U.S. territory. And I think that's well within diplomatic possibilities. There could be an exchange of money, or they might just decide to slip in under our wing, knowing that they would potentially have more freedom as a territory of the United States and more protection and more financial growth possibilities and opportunities. So I think I covered it today. We got the fire on the West Coast. We got the ice in the middle of the country. We got the ice in Greenland and the green in Iceland. We even covered the Panama Canal down there. And I should have worn my Panama Jack hat, which is hails back to the days when Americans went down there to build that and came back with those Panama hats. And tell me what you think in the comments section. Is any of this really at the top of Donald Trump's priority list, or is this a big troll and a big smokescreen while he and his group work diligently in the act of restoring the continental United States in our finances, to stop inflation, to put an end to corruption, to stand up to big pharma, to bring to heel the Department of Justice and make them to depoliticize the Department of Justice and make them about enforcing American laws again instead of harassing parents for attending school board meetings and disagreeing with the school board. Yeah, that's happening. The FBI investigates you if you go and speak out against certain things at your school board meetings. And so that's a huge waste. The FBI was never meant to do stupid, ridiculous crud like that. And they need to go back to busting big-time drug dealers, sex traffickers, and high-level criminals and terrorists. And that's what they were supposed to do, is to chase interstate criminals who use state lines to hide from their crimes and to avoid punishment. And he will restore the world to that, the United States back to that, and restore the FBI back to their original purpose, or disband them. That's up to them. Whether they play ball, if they play ball, they get restored. They don't play ball, they get replaced with something else. So tell me what you think in the comments section. Is any of this important to Donald Trump, or is it just a way of triggering other people while still pointing out things that need to be dealt with in the next 4 years? Have you got anybody who's been affected by the storm? Have you been affected by the ice and snowstorm, the blizzard? Or my heart, my prayers, my thoughts go out to everyone who lost their homes in those California, LA fires. It's, I think, the worst thing I've ever seen. I think it's worse than what happened in Hawaii. And this could destroy Southern California's, destroy their economy. It may stop new movies from being produced. And some of you might say, well, that's a good thing. I will say a lot of the people that lost their homes are the same people that are so hateful towards the flyover country and all of us who believe in God, honor, duty, and family. So I'm not saying they had it coming. I'm just saying that's what happened. But some good people got hurt too. Candace Cameron lost her house. James Wood lost his house. Mel Gibson lost his house. So it ain't just the morally challenged. It's everyone who works in that state. I've been telling people to get out of California for a long time. If you're a Sage Wanderer viewer, why are you still in California? Right? You know, this is just going to get worse. And I won't even bring up that it could be the wrath of... Never mind. I'm not going to say it. Let God do the talking. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Be nice. Don't be hateful to me or to each other and about these situations. There's a huge tragedy happened there. And tell me what you think about the Trump administration. Oh, before we go, Trump got convicted, technically, finally, officially. I do believe it'll be overturned in the appeal. I think the history books, when speaking of Donald Trump, will say Donald Trump was the first president to take office as a convicted felon. Asterisk number 1. Asterisk number 2, 2 asterisks, is, but it was overturned in appeal and expunged from his record. And I think that's what will happen in the long run. Tell me what you think. They convicted him with no punishment, so all it did was to slander his name. All it did was hang convicted felon on his title there. But I think that will be erased upon appeal. So tell me what you think. Don't forget to support the channel. Leave a kind comment. Give me a thumbs up. Make a donation. Keep the lights on here in the cabin. And we'll see you next time on Political Soup.